Okay, I'm going to get started. I would like for you all to meet our presenters today. Thank you very much, Laura Quinn. She's the Executive Director from Idealware, and I have had the pleasure of working with her before, and she's great on presentation. So thank you, Laura.
Absolutely. Great to be here.
Laura, if you want to just tell us real quick what you actually do at Idealware.
Absolutely. So I'm the executive director of Idealware, and Idealware is a nonprofit. We're a 501c3 ourselves with the mission of providing research-based information to help other nonprofits make smart technology decisions for themselves. So if you don't know Idealware, check out our website. We've got tons and tons of free resources, articles, reports, workbooks, things like that to help people think about technology.
Great. Well, thank you. And then you have me, Kazan Knapp. I'm the marketing director at Balance Interactive. I do all internal marketing. And then we also have Ann Mader, who is our digital strategist, and she'll tell you a little bit about what she does.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Kazan. It's great to be here. I'm the digital strategist working with our clients on how to create marketing experiences through digital technology that best serves their consumers and their members.
And just so for the couple of you that maybe don't know what Balance Interactive does, we are a full service digital agency that works primarily with associations. Okay, well, let's get right to it. The agenda for today, we are looking at right partners, wrong perceptions, 5 imperatives to improve marketing and IT performance, 3 important trends in transforming the role of marketing, and seizing the digital opportunity. So basically, we're going to solve all your problems today in this presentation. That's what we're hoping. Okay, so right partners, wrong perceptions. I want to tell you a quick story of stuff that we have seen from our clients. A global company recently decided to do what many companies are doing today, figure out how to turn big data into big profits. So they put together a preliminary budget and a request for proposal that effectively asked vendors to take the data that their company was collecting and identify any opportunities. Sounds simple, right? Well, vendors were thrilled. I mean, this is people like us. They're happy to get RFPs like this. 2 months later, bids came in at 400% over budget. The obvious solution at this point was to narrow down the scope. But when they tried to do that, they figured out that nobody was sure what to cut and what to keep because the chief marketing officer hadn't specifically defined the most important data requirements, and the CIO hadn't reviewed the request for proposal or intervened to prevent the inevitable above budget bids. Well, obviously, months of wasted time and spending later, this company was no closer to a big data plan. We see variations of this big data storyline playing out in executive offices around the world. CMOs and CIOs, unfortunately, are in the thick of it. This situation reflects one central truth, that both the CMO and the CIO at this point are being required and are on the hook for turning all of this data that's being collected into growth together, not as individual entities anymore. This may be a marriage of convenience, but it is a marriage that they have to make work, since worldwide volume of data is currently growing at least 40% a year. And I think that this is why a lot of CMOs are waking up to the fact that IT cannot be treated like back office functions anymore. Rather, that CIOs are becoming more strategic, they're becoming partners, and they're becoming crucial to developing and executing marketing strategies. Now, that was a lot. And Laura, I'd like your opinion here on what you think. Do you see this as people are purchasing technology that CMOs and CIOs are starting to work together? Do you feel it's relevant that they should work together?
Absolutely. I think in fact, it goes both ways. So you've got CIOs who are becoming more, as you mentioned, more strategic. I think it's harder to be a CIO these days and just kind of be heads down in the IT world, as opposed to really being focused on the information and data and even marketing priorities of the organization, because there's so much overlap. And then the flip side as well, that a CMO, it's harder and harder to say, all right, well, I come at this from a branding and graphic design and language perspective, and things like data aren't as relevant to me. And that's never really, so data has never been certainly irrelevant to marketing. Marketing is a really data-heavy organization, is a really data-heavy part of the organization. But I think that with the ability to extract data from websites and from email tools and from Facebook and kind of everywhere, as well as your specific systems, it becomes more and more, there's more and more overlap between technology and marketing. And so for both functions, it's really important to be able to work together and to think about it and to figure out how that role is split. So it's not just, everybody, in quotes, is responsible for it, which means really nobody is responsible for it.
Right, absolutely. And actually, in my experience, just working as a marketing manager at a tech company, it was very important for me to be able to understand not just the marketing and sales perspective, but how to push dashboards and all of the data that we were collecting from marketing campaigns to our senior level staff, and for them to quickly have the snapshot. And so I actually had to really become very good at using Salesforce. So yeah, okay, great. Well, so what we'll do is we'll move on here. So now we all know, and I think we all have the opinion that CIOs and CMOs agree for a greater need to work together. But I read a study recently where even though we all agree, it's hard, and we're seeing a different picture of people when you dig deeper, that they're not exactly sure how to bridge that gap. And some of the biggest pain points that we have seen of these two groups working together is that marketers really want more freedom from IT, and that IT wants more planning and compliance with standards from marketing. Actually, in the exact same study that I read from Accenture that they put out about collaborating, the collaboration of marketing and IT, they discovered that more than 3 in 10 CMOs feel that IT either keeps marketing out of the loop, doesn't make time and technical resources available, doesn't make marketing a function or a priority. And then on the flip side, interesting enough, 3 in 10 CIOs actually agreed that they did keep marketing out of the loop. They did not make time and technical resources available, but they also believe that marketing undermines them because marketing bypasses IT to work directly with other vendors, which, again, in my experience, is usually very true. You try and keep IT out of the loop because you think that they don't understand marketing or what you need from marketing. So we're going to do a quick poll here just so that we can see what some of your pain points are. And I'm going to launch it right here and just pick one of the pain points that you think is the number one pain point that you are currently facing. And this is this is for marketing people. And then right after we do the marketing one, we will go and get IT, anyone that's working currently on the IT side of things, we will get their opinion of what they feel like their top pain point is. Okay, so we've got some polls coming in here. It seems like some of the top issues is solution complexity and integration. Okay, that's fair enough. That's something, and I think we see on a regular basis at Balance.
Yeah, definitely.
Can you publish the results, Kazan, so we can all see?
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as I'm going to give people
Great.
a couple more seconds here, and then I'll close it. Okay. All right. I'm going to close it here. Wow, we're split here. Okay, so can you all see the results?
Yes.
Okay, so split between solution complexity, time and technical resources not available, and then lack of expertise and knowledge in IT. Okay, great.
Yeah, I would say that it points to something interesting, which resonates for me, is that it doesn't feel to me as much as IT is keeping marketing out of the loop or marketing is keeping IT out of the loop, as much as things are really darn complicated. So like trying to figure out who is in charge of the website when the website has both technical components and marketing components, or do you split it? So this is just an example, obviously. Or do you split that up and say that there's different people responsible for, so different like C-level functions, they're responsible for different kinds of things on the website. It just all gets very complicated. So it requires some really thoughtful policy setting as to, okay, how should IT be involved in digital, in social? Where is this overlap? Let's come together as an organization to figure out what it means to us.
Absolutely, and planning that ahead of time.
Yep.
Absolutely. Okay, great. So I'm going to hide those results, and then for anyone who's on the line that are coming from an IT perspective, I'm going to launch the poll here, and please feel free to quickly give us your opinion on how you feel about marketing. Okay, I was just gonna say, it looks like there is nobody from the IT from IT departments, but people are participating. I was gonna say we all have marketing people on the line. All right, well, we have some results coming in. Okay, so some of these solutions, I mean, some of these pain points were similar, but there were some that were not. And interesting enough, this study that I was reading about, some of these pain points are the same thing, and I feel like these two departments are butting heads over the same problems. Okay, I'm going to close this in a couple of seconds here, and we can see the results here. Okay. So again, solution complexity and integration. I don't doubt that for 1 second. I feel like that will forever be a pain point in organizations.
Absolutely, and I feel like some of this is because simply things are becoming more and more complicated. You know, channels are proliferating as opposed to just getting simple, as opposed to replacing each other. And then time and money always just an issue. You know, I don't think we're ever going to get around that.
Yeah, and also just the fact that it's not like these tools are being created and then it ends and it gives us time to catch up. It's just consistently new tools being added to the mix and trying to figure out how to use them and how to integrate them and how to extract the data. Everyone talks about data. Well, what do you do with that data? Great. Okay. Well, so we're going to move forward here. That was awesome. Thank you guys for participating in that. And so we have a call to action here from Anne, since she actually works on a day-to-day basis with this type of stuff with our clients. So she's going to teach us a lesson.
Right. Yeah, and this kind of goes to what the poll was showing, the integration difficulties. And it really, so the call to action is all about improving that collaboration between the CIO and the CMO and accepting IT and marketing as strategic partners. Ensure that marketing becomes more tech savvy and that IT becomes more agile and responsive. Because today, customers are really expecting this personalized experience. Digital customers understand that their experiences can be personalized and they really crave that tailored interaction. They're looking for relevant information that's been curated specifically for them. And data really speaks to that of how to get there. Marketing's tasked with creating these golden experience, so to speak, and which means translating and analyzing all of these data sets across a wide range of channels. And as we just were talking about, these channels are growing. They're social, mobile, CRM, point of sales, etc. And so really pulling in the CIO who has the expertise to really bring all of that data together and create desired outcomes. So it's meeting the needs of the personalized experience that the customer is looking for, and creating these customer-centric models, and really bringing the CMO and the CIO together to use each other's skill sets and perspectives to really harness all of that data. Because digital marketing spending seems to be growing, and really it's the technology is the background of that investment. And so I don't know if Laura has anything to add to those, but or to.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think that in addition to kind of just thinking of these C-level positions as working partners, which hopefully is at least a desired goal for most organizations, I think to think about the idea of working teams to take on some of these things. I think we need to recognize the fact that it's not just the fact that, okay, it doesn't feel like the CMO has all the information and doesn't feel like the CIO has all the information. In fact, in some of these areas, no one has all the information, including like the world doesn't have all of the information. So to take it on as a basically a ongoing process of figuring out what works, a testing process, and to say, all right, who should be on this this kind of task force, who's helping us to define the right mix of for us of marketing technologies. Just thinking, for instance, my husband works for LL Bean, and it certainly doesn't get a much larger marketing team than that. Certainly, they're a much larger marketing team than almost all of you have, but they still are really in the space where they, even if things as straightforward and in theory old hat as email, that it's very much an evolving process. They've got a committee that meets monthly, I think, to talk about how this is working, what should they change, to evaluate the tools that they're using, to think about it as a group.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and we're actually going to get into that in a little bit, but that absolutely is a great point. I'm going to stop here for a quick sec and just answer some questions. Norman says, hi, Laura.
Hi, Norman.
Norman also has a tip, use less acronyms. Absolutely, Norman. You know what, afterwards, when I read this, I was like, this is a good point. He says, few nonprofits I know have CIO titles, and I suspect CMO isn't frequently used. And so just for these purposes, we will use the CIO, CMO example, but majority of the time we're speaking about IT and marketing roles. And then Keith adds, another pain point is sometimes marketers' lack of understanding of data and how databases work, which is a very good point, Keith. Absolutely. And we're hoping that we can solve some of those problems today. So we're going to jump right in here. 5 imperatives to improve marketing and IT performance. And I'm going to go through these, but if you, Laura or Anne, if you have an opinion about this, or if any of the attendees have questions or an opinion about what I'm saying, please feel free to jump in. So identify a Chief Experience Officer, CXO. Sorry, now I'm adding just another acronym to the mix. But what we mean here is that there needs to be one person that kind of bridges that gap, right? That understands marketing and understands IT. And that might be a CIO moves into this position or a CMO moving into this position. And actually, some people think that this position isn't necessary. But for all intents and purposes, I'm going to explain what this position is. This position is a person who understands flexible user interfaces and can create a unified view of consumer data. Okay, so they understand technology platforms and they understand operating models. They also make multi-channel strategy an integral part of a company's business strategy, which is really important. I know that this is one that companies struggle with all the time, is making that marketing strategy a part of the whole company business strategy. Just a little note here that this person obviously has to be supported by C-suite level staff. I mean, this should really be a joint responsibility of driving business outcomes and for building closer relationships with not only marketing and IT, but all departments in the organization. Something that we found is when you're looking at this type of role in a company, you're really reframing the role of marketing and IT, and you're moving the emphasis away from only marketing or IT. And you're focusing a little more on how consumers or members or clients are relating to your products and your services in a very digital world. Instead of it being like, okay, well, marketing is just a term an organization uses to discuss how they speak to consumers. It really becomes that personalized experience. Because in the grand scheme of things, goodwill, effort, clarity, all that stuff will go a really long way to bring the CMO and CIO together. But it's very rare that the chief marketing officer or a chief information officer actually has the right mix and the right balance between business and technology. So this person becomes a translator of those two functions. Laura, do you have an opinion here?
So I kind of agree with Norman here that it's a great solution for a very large organization. I might say to think through simply the description of the role and to define who's in it, which might be somebody who isn't specifically in marketing or IT, or somebody that lives under both. This idea of an experience officer, I have a lot of experience. I actually come out of a customer experience background myself for websites. And so thinking through the kind of the translation of what the customer might want into what is possible technically can be really useful, but you need to then think through who that is. And I think to have them in the C-suite seems a little, or even a director suite, might be a little ambitious in my mind.
Okay, absolutely. And Norman made a good point here. You know, the real issue is developing a culture where departments don't operate in silos. A simple way to do this is having people from different departments sit near each other, not in separate parts of the office. Norman, that's a really good point, and we actually have an example of that closer towards the end of our presentation. So I'll move on here. Accepting IT as a strategic partner. So if you don't have, or if it's not a possibility to create a person that is a CXO, we're looking at really finding these other ways to be able to join these departments together. One of the ways to do that is to really bring transparency to the process. A simple way to do this is to sit down at the start of a project or at the start of a strategy meeting to define data user requirements. Meet regularly, bi-weekly or monthly, to review progress and keep efforts on track. Each quarter, there really should be a frank discussion about the CMO-CIO relationship, again, either marketing or IT relationships, and how to strengthen and sustain these relationships. One of our clients, actually, the approach that they took was to develop a scorecard that tracks project progress and then identifies breakdowns. But something to remember here is that when you're addressing issues, it can't be about assigning blame. That's not the point of creating something like a scorecard, because that really just creates a toxic work environment, and it really should be more about having clear accountability and working collectively to fix problems. Okay, another way for us to work here is to change it up. Find people, hire people, or teach the people that you currently have different skill sets. Encourage them, encourage your marketing people to become a little more tech savvy. encourage your tech people to become a little more marketing savvy. Creating a team where each person has a combination of both of these skills is really the ideal situation. And that one way is for C-level people to empower their teams to drive and participate in technology decisions and become a little more savvy about the technology architecture. Host meetings. I know in my past company, we would do a once a month meeting on new ways that our technology are integrating, not only for our clients, but also in-house, how these departments are working together. And instead of these departments working in silos, it really, it was a safe, fun place for you to be able to ask questions. You didn't feel silly about it, that type of stuff. Because teams that are made up of people from both functions also really need to define the data use requirements. This is really important because you need to build out the infrastructure of what you need. This is something you alluded to, Laura, about planning ahead and making sure that everyone's on the same page of what their needs are from data gathering, what their needs are from technology. So is there anything you want to add to this? Is this a good solution if you don't have an opportunity to create a CXO?
Yeah, I really love the idea of having kind of opportunities for folks to brainstorm together or to work together over time. So to think through, maybe we can say there's a monthly meeting where we put a new kind of interesting challenge in front of a team of people to help them think through, to ask them to think through what could be done, and to both let them get to know each other and work together to, obviously the good of the organization to come up with things, and possibly even to formalize that a little, to then say, all right, they're defining strategies for things that we're going to try. And in something like the world of social, you can try things fairly rapidly. So you could actually say, all right, we're going to define, one thing a month that we're going to try in kind of small steps as this group. And we're going to come back each month to evaluate how, so maybe you do one thing every 2 months. So 1 month you decide on it, next month you talk about it and evaluate it, and then you move forward. So you're not just talking, you're actually doing things together. And I think that the shared, because I think that often you have the trouble that IT people find marketing people very fuzzy, and marketing people find IT people very rigid. And that's obviously a huge generalization, but to help them to understand the kind of the strengths of each other as actual teammates, I think can be really useful.
Absolutely. And something that I can add, Jan, I know Anne also knows that this happens. Actually, at our company, we have bi-weekly brown bags where we talk about not only solutions that we're finding for our clients that we can use in-house. And it really helps because we have the development team, we have project management team. It's in that situation, it's not just trying to join IT and marketing, but it's really, like Norman said, creating this open environment where everyone's learning from each other versus everybody being in silos. Okay, great. We'll move on here. So something that we've seen that is very helpful is creating a business transformation framework. And this framework makes clear how marketing and IT, any C-level executives, as well as leadership teams should and must work together and support each other. It covers really everything. This framework covers every stage in the journey of translating data into value, from something like setting strategy to constructing use cases, allocating funds, and deploying capabilities. Teams should be very explicit, though, about when decisions are needed, what must be decided, and then who is responsible for making them. Because this framework really should also, the end goal of this framework should really focus on creating a very rich and relevant consumer experience, and then also embrace tools, processes, and platforms that deliver consistent and relevant experiences across all of these channels that people are engaging with. And then the last one we have here is one of the most obvious ones, and I feel like one of the hardest ones, is develop trust. And that means trusting. Just remember, again, consumers, members, whoever you're working with, at the end of the day, they don't care, really have the time to deal with, your company departments not working together or being integrated. They don't care. All they care about is their experience with your organization. And so IT and marketing should really, really open the floodgates of communication. They should create teams that have different skill sets that complement each other. And then they should welcome each other in the C-suite. And I make it sound so easy, don't I? If it was that simple, right? But then another thing I wanted to add here was that, don't expect, if you are trying to do this in your own company, don't expect to get it right the first time. Focus on maybe a few pilots, test teams together, create new processes and collaborations that you can manage. Because this approach really allows teams to develop best practices and learn really valuable lessons that then can be used to train bigger and bigger teams as you learn and figure out how to create these teams that are working together. And don't be afraid to fail. Honestly, keep the projects and the team small enough that once you do fail, which you will a couple of times, you always have to before you get it right, that you learn quickly from what was going wrong and that you rectify it and fix it and move forward. Laura, do you have anything to add here?
I would add to these tips that I think, so something you've alluded to is the idea that, and this might be the opposite of trust, but that metrics can be very useful here. So if you have a shared set of, well, it starts with strategies, presumably, strategies and then goals and then tactics that you're going to actually undertake and how you're going to measure them, it becomes a framework around which to partner. So to basically say, all right, well, our goal is to bring in 100 more members in 2015. And then to say, okay, great, let's sit down across IT and marketing and define what we need to do as an organization to get that done. So marketing can say, all right, well, we need to think through outreach. We need to think through how to be able to, or actually an easier one to connect in IT is to connect up the around the lapsed members. So to basically say, all right, we need to be able to do a deep dive into lapsed members that we can't easily do ourselves as a marketing team. So basically, IT, can you help us to do that? And IT may say, well, how about we take on this and you take on that? And then basically, so there's tactics defined. Okay, so we're going to do this analysis of lapsed donors. We're also going to, so we're going to say we're going to re-up 50 lapsed donors. 50 donors are going to come, I'm totally making this up off the top of my head, so forgive any weirdness there. 50 new members are going to come from additional list building efforts. So we're going to outreach into the world and to say, okay, well, how can we work together there? If, for instance, the IT department is in charge of the website, then that implies some pretty detailed coordination to think through landing pages, to think through exactly what's going on there. But for IT not to feel like simply they are doing these things because marketing says so or asks them, but rather they are a shared partner in getting to the same place. And if indeed you get the 100 new members next year, then it is a shared success. And it is not just the success of the marketing team with some back-end support from IT, but it is both organizations working together.
Absolutely, that's a great point. Is that it's that IT is not just the implementer at this point. It's that they become really a strategic partner. And then, something that is effective is when you reach those goals, both IT and marketing together, call them out, send out an email to the company saying, look what we achieved. Really make a big deal out of it. People respond well to that. You want to work harder when you know that it's being acknowledged. And so, great point. Thanks, Laura. I'm going to quickly just stop here, and before we move into the next phase here, Norman, thank you for all your participation. Something that Norman was saying is, in return, tech staff have to be willing to partner with staff from other departments and implement new solutions. Absolutely. Brown bag lunches are a great idea to get staff together. They really are. I mean, we find them very useful, and we've actually started recording them now too, so that people who can't join can view them later. And then, so what Laura is saying, that you have to get departments thinking beyond the needs of their own group and what's best for the organization. Absolutely, Norman. That is at the end. That should always be everybody's end goal, regardless of who you are in the organization or the department. The end goal should always be the organization goals. And it is easier said than done, Norman. Much easier. I can sit here and tell you that from experience. All right, we're going to have Ann Mader move into the 3 important trends that are transforming the role of marketing today.
Right, so this all kind of speaks to why do we really need the marketing and the IT folks to all come together and really have this culture shift. And it's becoming, it's all about understanding how members interact with your organization and what's changing about that. And as we talked about earlier, the consumer, the member, has all of the power these days. They make their online purchases at a moment's notice from anywhere in the world. They make informed choices about products, about services, about what they're going to do, basically with the information that's right at their fingertips. And they're in this community environment sharing this information with their peers and their family and their friends and other members. So they really have more choices and more freedom to consume products on their own terms. And there's a mind shift going on about this. It's called a mobile mind shift, and consumers are experiencing product and information, and they're expecting it to be readily available to them, no matter like what device they're using, what type of technology they're using. And so marketers are finding that to be effective in this ecosystem, they really need to explore innovative ways to engineer relevant and engaging, personalized experiences to follow their customers through every moment of their journey. And the IT department needs to really work to help those CMOs meet those needs by understanding their customers' behavior and how customers are using technology, which may mean that technology needs to think about to rethink doing cost-controlling bottom-up approach and really take the customer-first top-down approach. And next, really with all of this data that's coming in, historically, creative was kind of the starting point of marketers developing a campaign, and now it's about taking all of that data and using it to collaborate and drive this whole creative execution. So as we know, organizations face all of this overwhelming amounts of data and rapidly changing customers' behaviors, and increasingly there's more and more competitive pressures. With new technology and all of these proliferating channels and platforms, and everything's become just a much more complex environment. So at the same time, though, the explosion of this data and digital technologies has really opened up an unprecedented array of insights into what our members and customers are needing and what their behaviors are. And the most pervasive insights, these come from the connected consumer, who they're looking at social media, or they're using social media and digital technologies, and they're having conversations and interactions with your organizations and your brands. And these are hugely powerful insights and data points that we can use to become more customer-centric. So the marketing team can use the data to become more effective in getting to know the members and the consumers, what they want, what their needs are, what their expectations are, and even really look into the future and see what their expectations will be. And the CIO can really help provide that software that makes it possible and helps them stay relevant, helps the technology team stay relevant and contribute to those business goals, even outside their traditional practice areas. So both marketing and IT realizing that this focus is shifting, and there's some data out there that says like 85% of marketers and IT executives believe this relationship is critical for building these consumer-centric programs. So, and that all goes to the next point, which is really delivering value to empowering the customer. And that the marketers need to kind of change this culture of this data first to this data first mentality and use this data to really forge really strong, lasting relationships that are relevant and meaningful across all channels with their members and customers. And to use this data on an ongoing basis throughout their department and listen for opportunities and maybe maximize these experiences to really understand what's going on with their customer through their life cycle. And then the IT becomes, they can have this really important and pivotal role in identifying and implementing these technical solutions to meet the needs of the marketing team. So I have kind of a big company example of how marketing and IT partnerships can work really well. Forbes has these great case studies, and one of them comes from the Regal Entertainment Group, where the CMO and the CIO came together to work on their customer loyalty program, which became a priority for the organization. And what they did was they looked at all of the data that was coming in from the POS system, their data warehousing, their email systems, to really enhance their marketing by segmenting and targeting and communicating with their customers. And so they basically redid their entire loyalty program infrastructure. But by doing that and working together, they really saw an increase in engagement. Their mobile commerce was up 261%. Their digital traffic was up 41%. So the IT infrastructure really enabled their marketing to become more efficient and effective in engaging with their consumers. And they together had a really large impact on their overall business. So I think Kazan has an example of one of the organizations that we work with, who's a smaller organization. So
yeah, and actually, I'm going to quickly wrap this up because I know we're going a little over, but one of the examples, Norman, that you also said, I recently met with Reggie Henry from ASAE, and I was lucky enough to see they are really trying to implement this new way of thinking at ASAE about combining CIOs and CMOs and the departments, the marketing and IT departments. And he said to me, he actually took me to his office and he said, look at where I'm sitting. I'm sitting right next to the CMO. And he laughed and he said, it's small things like this that just making those small changes of being able to just be right there, be able to ask questions quickly from his CMO when he needs them has already improved their collaboration by so much. And then even using simple things like he doesn't even have a desktop computer. He really just works with an iPad and a phone because he understands that that's how their members are starting to communicate with ASAE. And so it was really great to see an association like ASAE taking a lot of these things that we all feel like are happening on a global level to these big companies and implementing them in their own offices. And then I'm going to finish up here real quick so we can just take a couple of questions. Seizing the digital opportunity. Well, we all know that there are many challenges. We just put them out there. Some of these challenges are figuring out how to access diverse data across devices and platforms, providing customers with the service that they want and expectations that they have and being able to support them, and then obviously capitalizing on additional markets. And we know what we need are intuitive tools that integrate data into day-to-day processes. And so just start thinking about the types of things that you are using these tools and technologies for. An example I have here is, being able to use and translate data that are that can be turned into tangible business actions. For instance, having a clear interface for scheduling employees, or fine-grained cross-selling suggestions for call center agents, for instance, or even something as simple as having marketing managers be able to make real-time decisions on discounts or something that's happening. For instance, associations being able to make real-time decisions on what members are interacting with on their websites. Because many companies fail to complete this step when they're thinking and planning, and that just ends up being one of the reasons that when you look at technology and marketing really integrating, it does not work. And so I want to just have a takeaway here that companies really need to create a roadmap and really assemble a talented pool of the right size of people and the right mix of people. Because the best plans then going further will outline how organizations can nurture marketing, how they can nurture IT, and how they can nurture any other frontline staff that will then thrive in a data and technology rich environment. So that is that. If we have any questions, Laura, would you like to add anything as a final, how can we help?
Yeah, I feel like data is a huge opportunity in this realm. So both both the CIOs and the marketing team tend to be fairly data-driven organizations, and there's just an explosion of data that is available to understand your customers, to understand what they're doing, to look in a lot of detail. So a digital campaign has a lot of advantages over like a TV advertising campaign or a direct mail campaign, in that there's basically real-time data available as to what's resonating and what's not resonating. So to basically use data as a way to get your technology team and your marketing team on the same page as to what is actually happening and to make a strategy for moving forward, I think is, and especially with so much talk these days in the sector about data and measurement and stuff like that, it seems like a strategy that is likely to resonate for both groups.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Right. And yeah, then you add in services like, we are just speaking to some of our clients about real-time personalization on websites, and really being able to put forth that really that client experience of when you're clicking on a homepage and it's whatever banner the person clicked on is producing the content for the next page and the next page. I mean, it just completely at that point, that's so much data and such a rich profile that's being generated. But really, then what do you do with it? How do you use that? So being able to come up with that strategy is probably the first step. Great. Well, do we have any questions? I apologize for us going over a little. Okay, there seems to be no questions coming in. So I'm going to thank everybody for attending. I hope that we at least answered some questions that you had about how to get marketing and IT to collaborate and work together. Laura, thank you so much. We really appreciate your input.
Of course.
And thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Work day to day with clients that are facing these problems. So if I have any questions coming at me, I will definitely bring Anne in since she is the expert. And then feel free to go to our blog. We will have a post-webinar survey just asking a couple of questions about our content and our presenters. And then also we really would like your input on any other webinars that we can run in the future that you feel will be helpful to get your organization to where it needs to be. Great. Well, thank you guys and have a great day.
Fantastic. Thank you guys as well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.